Good afternoon and Merry Christmas. This is the King's Christmas message.
I'm standing here in this exquisite chapel of St. George at Windsor Castle, so close to where my beloved mother, the late Queen, is laid to rest with my dear father. I am reminded of the deeply touching letters, cards, and messages which so many of you have sent my wife and myself, and I cannot thank you enough for the love and sympathy you have shown our whole family. Christmas is a particularly poignant time for all of us who have lost loved ones. We feel their absence at every familiar turn of the season and remember them in each cherished tradition. In the much-loved carol, O Little Town of Bethlehem, we sing of how in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. My mother's belief in the power of that light was an essential part of her faith in God, but also her faith in people, and it is one which I share with my whole heart. It is a belief in the extraordinary ability of each person to touch with goodness and compassion the lives of others and to shine a light in the world around them. This is the essence of our community and the very foundation of our society. We see it in the selfless dedication of our armed forces and emergency services, who work tirelessly to keep us all safe, and who perform so magnificently as we mourn the passing of our late Queen. We see it in our health and social care professionals, our teachers, and indeed all those working in public service, whose skill and commitment are at the heart of our communities. And at this time of great anxiety and hardship, be it for those around the world facing conflict, famine, or natural disaster, or for those at home finding ways to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm, we see it in the humanity of people throughout our nations and the Commonwealth, who so readily respond to the plight of others. I particularly want to pay tribute to all those wonderfully kind people who so generously give food or donations, or that most precious commodity of all, their time, to support those around them in greatest need, together with the many charitable organizations which do such extraordinary work in the most difficult circumstances. Our churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and gurdwaras have once again united in feeding the hungry, providing love and support throughout the year. Such heartfelt solidarity is the most inspiring expression of loving our neighbour as ourselves. The Prince and Princess of Wales recently visited Wales, shining a light on practical examples of this community spirit. Some years ago, I was able to fulfill a lifelong wish to visit Bethlehem and the Church of the Nativity. There I went down into the chapel of the manger and stood in silent reverence by the silver star that is inlaid on the floor and marks the place of our Lord Jesus Christ's birth. It meant more to me than I can possibly express to stand on that spot where, as the Bible tells us, the light that has come into the world was born. While Christmas is, of course, a Christian celebration, the power of light overcoming darkness is celebrated across the boundaries of faith and belief. So whatever faith you have or whether you have none, it is in this life-giving light and with the true humility that lies in our service to others that I believe we can find hope for the future. Let us therefore celebrate it together and cherish it always. With all my heart, I wish each of you a Christmas of peace, happiness, and everlasting light.
And that was the King's Christmas message. King Charles standing by a Christmas tree at St George's Chapel Church in the grounds of Windsor Castle, where his mother and his father were buried. Our royal correspondent Laura Bundock is at Sandringham this afternoon, where the royal family are gathering for their Christmas celebrations. And Laura, just reflecting on the opening remarks, first of all, from King Charles in his first Christmas message, he straight away recalled his mother, who died in September at the age of 96 after 70 years on the throne, saying Christmas is a very poignant time for those who have lost loved ones.
Absolutely, he made that very clear. And look, there was a lot of familiarity about the whole of today, but at the same time, there was a lot that felt very different too. The Queen, the beating heart of the family, no longer there. And now we see, of course, the King making this first address as monarch. And I think you only need a quick look to realise that it was quite distinct. For starters, he's standing up, he's not sat down, he's not surrounded by photos of his family. Perhaps there was simply too much to read into which photos went on display, but the tone and the content felt distinct as well. The Queen's annual addresses always seem like a gentle review of the year. She didn't overly dwell on difficult issues, whereas the King's message seems more direct, particularly talking about the cost of living crisis. His language is strong, speaking about the great anxiety, the hardships that people are facing. It's clear that this is an issue that he wants to raise, that this is an issue he is sympathetic to. Now, of course, a lot of people might watch it and think, well, what could he possibly understand about a cost of living crisis, given his position of immense power and immense wealth? But at the same time, I think what we are starting to see is the King wanting to go further than the Queen ever did in speaking out about these issues. Don't forget, though, when he made that first speech as King, he made it very clear he wouldn't be a meddling monarch. And at the same time, we've also heard in the speech him talking about and praising nurses, ambulance staff, both of whom are in dispute with the government, both of whom are striking at the moment. So it's clear he is prepared to brush with the political side of things. Another big issue and theme there was, of course, faith. We know how important the Queen's own faith was to her. The King echoing that sentiment for himself, speaking about his faith, but also people of other faiths and people with no faith at all. I think looking back, what do we take away from his first speech? I think he wants to be seen as a king who is listening, who is understanding, who appreciates the challenges of our time. And I think bit by bit, we are starting to see and hear from Charles the King. It's been a difficult year, of course, and he now has to guide the family away from that into 2023 as he prepares, of course, for his coronation next year.
Difficult time for the UK, the Commonwealth and globally. As you said, King Charles made reference to a range of subjects in his message. But he didn't mention trouble within the royal family itself, and I'm particularly thinking of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Many people remember one of the Queen's Christmas messages where she referred to an annus horribilis. There was none of that in the Christmas message. Was that a very conscious decision for the new king?
It's very hard, isn't it, when you start name-checking people, what everyone else is going to look into what is said. I mean, when it comes to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, certainly they are gone from the royal family in terms of their working roles, but certainly not forgotten. And even speaking to the well-wishers who'd gathered here, one woman said she loved it when she saw, as she called them, the Fab Four, William, Kate, Harry and Meghan, walking away from church that famous winter they did it. But she said, I haven't got the photo in the prominent place anymore, but it is still at the back. And I think the couple will still be very much in the King's mind. A surprise appearance today as well, I think, from Prince Andrew. He was in the earlier service here at Sandringham, and he made an appearance later on, moving out to come and talk to the crowds as well, wishing them Merry Christmas. We haven't seen from him at all, of course, for a long time now. His last public appearance back for the Queen's funeral. But I think this time very much a moment where the whole family reflects on what's happened, reflects on where they are, and then looks about how they try to move on with that into the future.
Laura, thank you. Laura Bundock at Sandringham there, talking about the King's first Christmas message, his first Christmas message.